Hello folks, and welcome to something a little bit different on the channel today. As you will see, I am beginning in the studio and I'm wearing a pair of headphones. This is unusual. Why am I wearing headphones? That's because today we're doing a collaboration video with Dan, aka the Aspie World. Hello Dan.
Hey, how's it going, Kevin? How's it going?
I'm very good. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm very well. Just enjoying this early morning collaboration video, which is new for me. I'm not awake
Exactly.
by now.
Tell you what, we're recording this at 9 o'clock in the morning. I've still got my cup of coffee in front of me. It is early to be out here recording, but the busy lives we lead, we've been trying to set this up it's literally been 2 weeks of trying to find a pocket of time where the two of us are both available at the same time so we can do this video. And we finally found the time, so I hope you enjoy the videos. And this is going to be part one of a two-part video series. Part one is here on my channel, part two is over on Dan's channel. I'm going to link to his channel up in the top corner there so you can go and check him out. Make sure you drop a subscribe on him as well. But we're going to be chatting about the relationship between people with autism and parents of people with autism. So I'm going to be having a chat with Dan about how life for him was as a kid growing up, what his relationship with his parents was like, that kind of thing. And then we're going to switch things over on Dan's channel, and he's going to ask me a few questions about what it's like being Andy's dad and being a parent of somebody with autism. So check him out, check us out, etc, etc. Let's get into some questions because as I say, my coffee is just starting to kick in and we need to get this going while my arms are still waving around and the coffee is still flowing. So one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, Dan, because it's something that me and Anna often talk about, because we can kind of we can see Andy's life from the outside looking in, but because his ability to communicate with us about what day-to-day life is like is fairly limited. He has his vocabulary that he can use, but he doesn't necessarily always use it in the most descriptive way. It often becomes a routine thing. Like, he comes in from school, we ask him what he's done at school, and he'll always say, I've been to the swing room, I've watched Newsround. And we know he doesn't do these things every day, but that he knows that's when someone asks him that question, that's how you answer that question. So it's often quite hard for us to gauge whether he's enjoying himself, because he doesn't always necessarily express that through facial expressions, whether he's happy or sad, whether he's had a good day or a bad day, if something has changed. And it's quite hard for us to kind of get an insight into what his actual day-to-day life is from his point of view. So I think it would be really beneficial to us if you could talk us through some of your experiences growing up as a young person with autism, what it was like day to day. Over to you. How's day-to-day life? What should we be thinking about with regards to Andy that we perhaps haven't even considered yet?
Sure. Okay. No, it's a great question, and it's a great one. Like I said, so I have Aspergers syndrome, which is more of a high-functioning autism spectrum condition, which differs from classic autism in a few intellectual abilities, which means like I gained a very strong vocabulary through studying vocabulary. Really, I mean that's how I did it. But just to answer something really quickly, you were saying about Andy coming back and saying he did the same thing every single day. This a lot of children on the spectrum do this because answering that question's boring, because they know if they give you that generic answer, you're going to leave them alone. It's not something that it's not that they don't understand the question, it's more the fact that they can't be asked to answer the question, so let's give you what you want to hear.
That's amazing.
So that's why. So if you ask the questions like, did you go swimming? Did you eat biscuits? Did you watch Newsround? Those answers would have an exact yes or no. So that's what you need to ask. No, so of course he's learned the rhetoric. Like, I'll just tell them whatever they need to do to get them off.
That's interesting, because I have kind of slipped into doing that almost accidentally lately, because we're so focused on what he's eating at the moment. So I have been saying, did you eat your crisps today? Did you have some cereal today? So did you go to the spa? Because I know he goes to the hot spa on a Monday. So on a Monday, I'll ask him if he's been to the hot spa. So we are getting a little bit better at asking those specific questions, but there are some days where we don't actually know what he's done. Perhaps the school haven't communicated with us very clearly that day and we don't actually know, and we'd kind of like to know, but obviously he doesn't tell us. He always goes through the same things. I've watched Newsround. I went to the church. The other day we asked him and he said, I've been to the cathedral. I don't think you have, Andy. I don't think the school took you to the cathedral. I think you're telling me what you want to do.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I mean, he will understand what you're asking directly, but it's easier when you break it up into chunks where you can get a yes or no answer. So always just a little tip to remember that. But in terms of day-to-day life, and we were going over this a little bit earlier, is saying that like it's kind of like setting up dominoes. Like if you're in, let's put this in perspective, right? So if you're comfortable in your home, in your bed, and you're sitting in your bed, it's all nice and comfy and cozy and warm, and somebody rips you out of that and puts you outside, and it's raining and it's cold, it's horrible. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. So that is the simulation of how it would feel like for someone with autism, getting up in the morning and having to go out and do things in the world, because the world is super difficult to understand. And the way I would explain schooling is like, if you're at home in a quiet room on your own, you can set up dominoes and it's great. You can set up perfectly, flick them over, and you've got all the time in the world, and there's nobody there instructing it, and you can have a beautiful domino picture at the end of it that just lays out on the floor. But if you're in school trying to set up dominoes, you've got kids running all over the place, picking up dominoes, putting them in their mouth, throwing them everywhere. It's a horrible experience. So it's not like you can go to school and then use something that the kids are using, typically, because it's not yours. You don't know the where it doesn't belong in that scenario. So that's why I feel like the academic situation of people with autism going to academia, it's difficult to do because it's not accommodating really for them, unless it's like an SEN school. But the SEN schools are getting you prepared to go to what the hell do they call it? What's the word? So the SEN schools, mainstream. So they typically get SEN schools will make you able to go to mainstream. So that's the overall goal. So to stick in mainstream is the best, but it definitely needs support. But it's just difficult. Like that growing up, I think the hardest time was from primary school to secondary school. Like to go from nothing to secondary school, all that bit in between was horrible. Like it was horrible. It felt like it lasted 10,000 years. It was horrible.
Interesting, because I want to hold on, refocus, Kev. It's interesting you say about it being an experience that is similar to sort of being ripped out of a bed, thrown out into the world, because I think we, as parents, can sometimes lose sight of just how unpleasant the experience can be and get very focused in on, well, he's got to go to school. He's not going. The big problem here is that he's not going to school, because he refused to go to school for like a year and a half, and we were so focused on getting him back, even though we'd seen in the past some sort of warning signs that at times it was a really, really unpleasant experience, a horrible place for him to be. We spoke a little bit before we started recording about his old Monday migraines that he used to have, where he would come home from school every Monday and just walk in the house, throw up, go to bed, sleep through until the following morning. They all started off when they started bringing swimming into primary school. So they'd go swimming every Monday. He hates water. So they would go swimming, and almost as a way of getting out of it, maybe, or because the idea of doing it was so horrible to him, it would just make him sick. And he'd started off being sick at school, then coming home and sleeping. But when they stopped the swimming, the whole being sick and then sleeping thing carried on for years. It was probably 5 or 6 years after they stopped doing swimming on Mondays. Every single Monday, he would be sick as soon as he got home from school and then go to bed. And I guess it's because school had just become such an overwhelming experience that it was literally giving him a migraine on a Monday morning, being brought out of his relaxed weekend at home and into that environment on a Monday. It was just so overwhelming and unpleasant that it genuinely was making him ill. And it's quite hard to get my head around that aspect of it, but
it's kind of like it's trying to squeeze them into a funnel, and the funnel is built for neurotypical people. So you're saying like you got to get out of bed, have your cornflakes, and go to school. But like that's how neurotypical people operate, because that's how their brains work. But the brain of people on the spectrum is completely different. So that's never going to work. You know what I mean? It has to have a different transition. It has to have a different approach. But this is quite a controversial topic. Some people say you have to force it into that to get the behaviour in there. But it is distressing. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the best technique is, because we still have to operate in the world, and the world is built by neurotypicals, or so they say. So it is a difficult one.
Interesting. So. When you were growing up, what was, or even now maybe, what are the biggest worries that you've got about your condition, about being on the spectrum? What should we be thinking about with Andy that he's potentially worrying about as well, that he's not able to communicate with us?
Well, I think one of the main things growing up, the worry was the fact that I couldn't be independently. So I was always with my parents. So my parents would take me, to like if I needed to communicate to somebody. Like I remember once I was doing, I playing music, so I was playing a music show my dad had put on because he was part of like a council community thing, and then he was trying to teach me to go and approach people who lived around the area to say, hey, look, we're putting on an event here, you need to blah blah blah, and I couldn't. It was just horrible trying to talk to these people about it. It was very confusing and stuff. So my dad kind of stepped in, and having that support was amazing. So living at home with my parents was amazing. And then I moved out and I lived with my partner, and Naomi, and she's she works with people on the spectrum, and so she's great, and it works really well. The biggest worry I have, which is the same worry I had back then, is that I'm scared of becoming alone and then having no support. And that's the biggest thing, because I can't live independently because of executive function issues and communication issues. This is the biggest issue. So that's always a worry. So one thing I'd say to look out for is to always try and think ahead of how Andy could always access support, because a lot of people don't think about that because it's always in the future. Futurists will think about it, but it's a worry. I've worried about it all my life. Think like, God, where am I going to be? How am I going to be an old man in a wheelchair somewhere who's going to be not looked after appropriately because people aren't going to understand it or whatever? So it's just something that I don't want to worry you, but I'm just...
No, it's already a worry that we've got. He's 13 now, and we had this conversation with his social worker just a couple of weeks ago about how once he turns 14, that's when we can put him on the waiting list for adult social services rather than children's. And she started talking about some of the changes that are likely to happen when he turns 19, I think it is. For example, the respite care that he gets now, he won't get anymore. He might get some kind of respite care, but what respite care is for an adult is so very difficult from what it is as a kid. As a kid, respite care is a really fun place for him to go. It's I always talk about when we were first shown around there, and they took us into one of the 2 TV rooms that they've got, and one of them's just got a massive trampoline built into the floor, and he can just go in there, bounce on the trampoline, watch TV. There's toys, there's fun. It's more about him having some fun away from us than it is about us getting a break. But when it's for adults, it literally flips on its head, and respite care for adults is literally, let's give your carers a break, and it's not necessarily an enjoyable experience for him. And then the conversation went round to and then, of course, we've got to think about where he's going to be living, what he's going to be doing. We're a long way away from it. Don't worry about that now. But it's just the whole thought of, well, we don't know. Our thoughts on it vary massively, even day to day. Some days we'll be thinking, well, we'll just keep him with us forever and look after him and it will be fine. And then the conversation inevitably gets round to, yeah, but we're a lot older than him. If we keep him with us forever, there's going to come a time when we're either too old or ill to look after him, or we die before he does. Is it cruel to wait until he's 50 before he's on his own and has to figure out what to do in life? Is it better to help him do that at a younger age? And I think that's a shared issue between the children and the parents. We're all terrified of this whole what happens if he's on his own thing.
Yeah, well, it is. It's difficult. It's a difficult one, and only time will tell. I think it's to think about it and try as much as you can to plan for it, but then you have to see how systematic and political changes occur in that lifespan. Because I had a ASD development worker when I was first diagnosed. Excuse me. So I had an ASD development worker when I was first diagnosed, and he'd visit me every week. But then his funding dried up, so I haven't seen him since. Just up and left. That was it. Don't see him anymore. It's like, oh my goodness, left high and dry, basically. And that was horrible. But and I feel like I have more high functioning ability, and it was still an issue for me. I think the best thing to do is you can plan so much, but you have to kind of just I think the sense of the fact that thinking, look, everything will work out all right. There's always good people in the world, and there will always be people who are adequately able to help people, because that's our human nature. So we don't have to. I think parents shouldn't have to worry about it, but I think it's something that does worry me. But I wouldn't dwell on it as a negative. Just think of it as a positive. How can I positively impact this thing? But that's all I would say on it.
Okay, cool. So there's been one of the sort of themes of our channel since we started like a year and a half ago has been the huge changes we've seen in Andy over that time, where he's gone from being this lad who didn't really say much or do much, was refusing to go to school, was regularly suffering with huge amounts of anxiety, having regular meltdowns, and just really, really struggling with life. And as a family, we were struggling a lot as well. And we've already seen enormous changes in him over the last year and a half, where he's now at the point where he goes to school every day. He's a much happier child. His communication has come on absolutely leaps and bounds. Where to the point where he's now making his own videos on his own YouTube channel, which is something we couldn't have even imagined would be possible a year ago. But now we're thinking in terms of, well, goodness me, this might actually be something he could do when he's older now, because he loves it so much. But I was wondering, from your personal experience, what did you ever have any periods of like massive change in how you were able to cope with the condition? Or is it just a case of everyone's completely different and we'll just have to take it all as it comes? I'm wondering if we should expect this huge period of change to continue, or if we've just been incredibly lucky, because the comments we get on this from people vary massively between those two extremes. We get some people saying, I can't believe this has happened, this is remarkable, my kid would never be able to do this, to yeah, I was, or the one that really blows our minds, we get people typing in there saying, yeah, I was just like Andy when I was his age. And it's, to me, the thought of someone being just like Andy when they were his age and then able to write that as a YouTube comment as an adult, that's mind-blowing to me. And I just can't imagine Andy ever being able to do that.
There's a few factors that will compensate positive change. One of the big things for me, I would say, was focus, the build of confidence through focus. And what I mean by this is, when I was really, really super shy, wouldn't talk to a lot of people, shy, but very quiet, wouldn't talk to a lot of people, high social anxiety, it was difficult. But the thing that helped me was that when I was about 15 or 16, I started playing music. Somebody gave me a guitar and I couldn't play guitar, so I taught myself to play guitar, and I was like, my brain just like it just blew open, and I was like, holy crap. So I taught myself to play guitar, drums, bass, violin, piano, cello, whatever, and whatever it was, I could just pick up an instrument and just want to learn to play it. And by doing that, it built this kind of like confidence in me, and I was like, I can kick ass, I can do anything, kind of thing. So that was the biggest change, because it brought me out of the shell. It opened me up to social circles which I could never ever have access to. It's like, going to a club and playing music in front of people and having people want to talk to you because they enjoy your creative aspect was just mind-blowingly mind-changing. I mean, it just changed the whole game for me. And by doing that, it's one of the reasons why I can do YouTube so confidently, because I've been a performer now for like 15 years. So that to me was a change, but it's knowing those triggers to trigger change is going to be the biggest help. So it's not just something that will happen and then it'll go away. I think it'll only get better, to be honest with you, and I think that it's a positive thing that will happen. That's
really interesting that you say that, because video, I think, has almost been that thing that we've accidentally stumbled into for Andy, and for really the signs were always there. Where for as long as I've known him, I mean, I've known him for 7 years at this point, and he's always videoed everything everywhere he goes, on his iPod that he had at the time, or on his DS, or now he has his own little flip camera that he uses, but he's always videoed everything, and it was just a thing that Andy did, and we always talked about it as it's just how he processes his day. He records it and then he watches it back, and it makes sense. That's how he's reliving those moments to make sense of them. But since we've given him his own YouTube channel, he's now going and doing things that he never would have dreamt to do before. So he asked us to take him to the supermarket. He hates the supermarket, but he wanted to go there and make a video of himself in the supermarket. And it was such a wow moment for us, because we just couldn't, even a month ago, I wouldn't have imagined Andy ever asking to go to the supermarket. And it's absolutely what you were saying about how music really helped you get into these situations you wouldn't been in before. I think video for Andy has been that trigger where he will go and do things he doesn't want to do in order to be able to make a film about them. And I'm really excited to see where that goes. It's just so cool. So to finish things off then, and then we'll head over to your channel and do the flip side of this. I was hoping to kind of get some closing words of wisdom from you. So is there one thing that really, really helped you, or one piece of advice that you'd want to give to a parent of someone with autism to help them in their job of helping their kid?
I mean, totally. I mean, there's two things. I'll tell you that. I'll give you two things. There's two pro tips, if you like. First one was diet. I used to be into like junk foods and high sugar, calorific foods. I was obsessed with it because it helped my brain go and it kept me going. But I didn't realize that you could do that from healthy foods as well. So when I switched over from highly caffeinated, highly kind of sugared foods to more fresh organic foods, it calmed me down ridiculously. That was number one, like a massive tip. Changing diet. It took a while because I was addicted to those foods, but it helped me so much. I can't even begin to say how much it helped me. And then the second thing was finding something of focus. And we talked about this just a minute ago with like the music and whatever. But when you find focus, you find purpose, and when you find purpose, again, you'll change as a person, you'll grow as a person. So when I found music, when I found creativity, when I found that I can make videos and music and whatever, it gave me a purpose to want to do more, and by doing that, it made me the person who I am, and I know I can hyper-focus, and it makes me really, so put this in perspective, when I want to relax or whatever, I research music, or I'll research videography, or I'll research UFOs, and by doing that, it makes me really, really relaxed because I'm really into it. So if you want your kid to be relaxed or calm or really be themselves, try and find the thing that they're most obsessed about and really, really encourage it. And I know it sounds weird because people are scared of people getting obsessed with something, but there's nothing wrong with it unless it's like, something dangerous. There's no harm in really helping someone's focus. So they're the pro tips I would give out.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right on the second one. The first one, goodness me, that could be a topic for a whole other video, because we'll do this at some point in the future, because I would love to pick your brains about how we might be able to change his diet, because he's lived pretty much exclusively on salt and vinegar crisps for the last 10 years, and there is no getting him to try anything else. So we would love to broaden his diet. He is not so keen on the idea, so we'll put a pin in that and come back to it in a future video, because I think we could comfortably fill an entire video just on that issue. So we're going to close things off there on this channel, but don't forget, we are going to continue the conversation over on Dan's channel. So the link to his channel is down in the description. Make sure you go and check that video out as well. Subscribe to his channel as well. Let us know down in the comments as well if this has been helpful to you, or if there's any big questions that I really should have asked, because we'll definitely invite him back for some more questions. So make use of the comments to do that. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for us. Subscribe for more daily vlogs and more stuff like this. If you've enjoyed it, let me know. We'll set more stuff like this up in the future. I know it's been a very different kind of video today. But thank you very much for joining us, Dan. And thank you very much for watching.